Somebody's husband is listening to this episode right this very second, hoping his wife never hears it. Want me to tell you why? Because some of y'all are looking for Delilah, and the whole time it's Sampson. A few weeks ago, I got on the phone with a man from a small southern town, and by the time we hung up, I wasn't wondering who was gay. I wasn't wondering who was sleeping with who. I wasn't even wondering what happened behind closed doors. I was wondering how many people are living double lives. Because what he described wasn't one secret. It was a world hiding in plain sight. And according to him, most people are looking in the wrong direction. They're checking phones for women, searching for another woman, looking for Delilahs. The whole time, it's the homeboy, it's the golf buddy, the workout partner, the friend she would never be suspicious of, the man standing beside him in every family photo. I asked him, "So when did you know?" And honestly, his answer surprised me because according to him, people had already decided who he was before he ever did. People watched how he dressed, they watched who he hung around. Most of his friends were girls, and in a small southern town, that was enough. There was no proof, no evidence, just enough for people to start talking. Think about that for a second. Imagine being 16 years old. You haven't kissed anybody, you haven't touched anybody, you haven't acted on anything, but somehow everybody already got your future planned out. The church ladies know they're whispering, your cousins know, people at school know, the people at the grocery store know. Everybody's got a theory, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got something to say, and most of them don't know a doggone thing. Then he told me something that stayed with me. He said he didn't even have his first encounter until after high school. After high school. Not during, but after. The rumors came first, the labels came first, the judgment came first, and the whispers came first. And according to him, that fear followed him for years. Because once a small town decides who you are, good luck with changing its mind. Then he told me there was no such thing as bisexual from where he came from. You were straight or you were what people whispered about. There was no middle ground. There was no gray area. No room for you to figure yourself out. And honestly, I think that's where a lot of double lives begin. Not in bedrooms, not in hotel rooms, not in text messages. They begin when people realize the truth about themselves doesn't fit inside the boxes that everybody else has built. Then Atlanta happened. And that's where the story takes a turn. Because he told me moving to Atlanta, it felt like stepping into another universe. See, back home, everybody whispered. Atlanta wasn't whispering. Back home, everybody hid. Atlanta wasn't hiding. Back home, people survived by pretending. Atlanta was full of people and they were living their lives openly. And then he said something that I haven't stopped thinking about. He said, "Damn, I found myself." Not sex, not attention, not relationships. He found himself. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the only one. For the first time in his life, he wasn't hiding. For the first time in his life, he saw people living openly. And whether people agree with his lifestyle or not, every human being understands that feeling. The feeling of finally finding a place where you don't have to explain yourself. But finding yourself and protecting yourself, those are two different things. And that's when that conversation took a turn that I wasn't expecting. Because he told me when he first got to Atlanta, he said he worked for an escort service. I said, "You lie." He said, "No, I did." I can already hear some of y'all. Before y'all stop blowing up my phone, before you start writing dissertations in my comments, before somebody's auntie starts a prayer circle for me, just take a breath. I didn't say it, he said it. I'm just holding the microphone. This man's story came out of his own mouth, not mine. And if this conversation makes you uncomfortable, then good. Because uncomfortable conversations are usually the ones people have been avoiding for the longest time. And suddenly, that wasn't just a story about identity anymore. Now we're talking about survival. We're talking about money, risk, opportunity, and yeah, danger. He told me he worked at a place called Peekaboo's. Peekaboo's is a lounge, a social scene, a place where wealthy men came through. They were businessmen, professionals, men with money, men with influence. They were men who could afford to live one life publicly and another life privately. There were rich white men, there were rich black men, men with status, men with reputation. He told me those men looked completely normal from the outside. And see, that's what shook me, because every stereotype people have about this world started to fall apart. These people weren't hiding under bridges. They weren't people standing on corners. These were successful people, connected people. They were respected people. People you might work beside, people you might worship beside, people you might never suspect. Then he told me something that changed the entire tone of the conversation. He said, it got dangerous. It got dangerous, not awkward, not complicated. It got dangerous. Then he told me there were times he didn't know who he was meeting. He didn't know their intentions. He didn't know if he was walking into a safe situation or a setup. He didn't know if he was walking into an opportunity or trouble. And for the first time that night, I stopped hearing story about sexuality. I started hearing story about vulnerability. Then he told me something his parents said before he moved away. They looked at him and they said, "All right, now you leaving out of here with nothing? You better not come back with nothing." And at that time, he didn't fully understand what they meant. Atlanta was freedom. Atlanta was excitement. It was a possibility. Then reality showed up. Because according to him, the people he met didn't look sick. They didn't look dangerous. They didn't look broken. They looked normal. They looked successful, attractive. They were well put together. And that's when he realized something. Risk? It doesn't always look risky. Sometimes it does look successful. Sometimes it looks attractive. Sometimes it looks exactly like somebody you would trust. Then he told me something else. He said before Atlanta, before the escort service and before any of that, he said there were older cousins already living that world. Older cousins teaching him things, showing him things. They explained things to him. And honestly, that part made me sit back. Because if everybody is so shocked, why did so many people already know the rules? Why were older cousins teaching him? Why were family friends already involved? Why were people already familiar with this world? Then he told me a story I haven't been able to shake. One of his first experiences, it involved a family friend, a man he had known for years, a man who had watched him grow up. Now, to me, this conversation wasn't about labels anymore. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about social media. It was about influence, power, vulnerability, and all the complicated spaces in between. The more he talked, the more I realized this wasn't one man's story. It was a network. It's a culture, a hidden world, operating right beside the one everybody could see. Then I asked him something I wasn't expecting to ask. I asked him, "What do you actually want from a relationship?" And honestly, his answer sounded like every other woman that I've ever talked to. He wants time. He wants loyalty. He wants trips, gifts, He wants attention. He wants somebody who chooses him. Then he said something that hit me. He says, I'm not going to be hidden. At 30 something years old, a home, a business, a life, and in his words, ain't nobody paying my bills. For the first time all night, I stopped hearing labels, and I started hearing a man who was tired of being somebody's secret. He was tired of being put on the back burner, tired of being called only when it's convenient, hidden when the family came around, hidden when church people showed up, tired of being hidden when image mattered more than honestly. Then he described one of his relationships as a bromance. And honestly, that stuck with me because underneath everything else, they were friends, their partners, homeboys, their significant others. And at that time, the more we talked, the less this sounded like some strange secret world, the more it sounded like human beings, people wanting love, people wanting connection, people wanting acceptance, people wanting somebody to choose them. Then I asked him one final question. I said, would people be shocked if they saw your inbox? He didn't hesitate. He said, yes. People from small towns, people with families, people you know, people you've probably sat beside in church, people you've already eaten beside at cookouts, people you probably never suspected. And that's when I realized this story wasn't about strangers. It was about proximity. Because according to him, the secret isn't far away. The secret is already in the room. And I'm telling you, we haven't even talked about the gym yet.